Greetings as we continue along here in this set of lessons. I realized last time that, and part of the problem is that my desktop, I have trouble getting it to work. Having trouble getting it to work for this video where I record from my screen. But the problem is that if I use my laptop, every little bump, even when I'm using the touchpad mouse and stuff, can affect the sound quality. So hopefully this one will be a little bit better quality, as I'm going to be very careful not to touch it. Now, the next of the three rules, I'm just going to cover the last three rules and then give you a couple examples. This will be a much shorter video. But we can start here with like the rule of addition. And addition is basically nothing more than basically just the idea if you have any statement that you know is true, you can add an or statement to it and it's still a true statement. Why? Because if you had something like it is, well, at this point it's 4:19 p.m. while I'm doing this. So if it's 4:19 p.m., then, or it is the year 2085. You know, it could be all kinds of things. Because what happens is once you add on an or statement, you kind of can confuse it with the fact that you can throw in any other information and it still remains true. So if you start it, you can just add on other statements and it will make it true still. The next example is what we call conjunction. And conjunction is sort of like simplification, just backwards. The idea is if you know that one statement is true and you know another statement is true, if you know P is true, and then you know Q is true but they're on separate lines, you can conjunct them or you can bring them together and onto one line. And nothing really particularly useful, but sometimes conjunction is a useful tool before you do a constructive dilemma, which is the next thing, or some of the others. Sometimes this conjunction method is actually somewhat beneficial. And basically the idea is if you know Paul is there and you know Quentin is there, you can say Paul and Quentin are there, and you can bring those together and you've not changed the meaning, and that follows perfectly well from the statements. The next one is what we call constructive dilemma. Constructive dilemma is kind of this big thing. And this here, you know, like I said, every one of those lowercase letters can actually be whole statements. Parentheses can actually be a much more. I mean, you know, this can get to be a pretty hairy-looking thing and not always be easy to see. But a constructive dilemma is basically the idea that if this, then that, and if that, or you know, if this, then that, this or that is true. Therefore, one of the other consequences is true. Anytime you know that anytime you have two conditional statements and you know that at least one of the two antecedents is true, then you know one of the two consequences is true. And an example of this might be, you know, P horseshoe Q might be, you know, if we go to the party, then we're going to stay up late, and if we don't go to the party, then we're going to stay up late. You know, I mean, maybe you're going to go to a movie or you're going to do something else. So if we go to the party, then we're going to stay up late, and if we don't go to the party, then we're going to stay up late. So either we go to the party or we don't, and then the conclusion is we're either going to be up late or we're going to be up late. Now, this one is my example. It's a little bit confusing because these are actually Q or S, but then by analogy, if we had used the one I gave you, you would know that you're going to be staying up late whether you go to the party or not. And that's sort of the way a constructive dilemma works. But you can also do this, like, if we go to the party, then we'll see Bill, but if we don't go to the party, then we'll see Sally. And then the case is that we'll either go to the party or we won't, so we'll either see Bill or Sally. And that follows perfectly well, I think. And that's all a constructive dilemma is. The key for this is to look and see if two conditional statements and you notice that both the antecedents are part of an or statement. Now, part of this, and this is kind of an interesting thing, sometimes if you have, like, if you know P is true, and you know, but then you have this other R or S, one thing you can do is use addition and add on or R, and then you would know Q or S. I mean, you could just add that on. So, sort of looking back at some of these other rules, they can be used together to create further rules. Now, let's turn back to our homework, and in this, we start here with the homework. And we start here with, in the first one we have A, therefore A wedge B. And in this case, we start off with the letter A, and then we've simply said, A or B, and we've just simply added on the wedge or B. So we would call that addition. Number 2, we have A, we have B separate, and then we put them together on one line as A plus B, and that's conjunction. And we can see here, number 3, we have done, we have 2 conditional statements. We have the antecedents here combined by wedge, and so we know one of the 2 consequences is true. And this goes on and on. Now this homework has a few examples, like for example, number 4 is from the previous rule. So you have to apply all 8 rules now. An A horseshoe bar B horseshoe Z wedge F, and therefore A horseshoe Z wedge F. If we look here, we have bar B is the middle term, and we notice that we can take A and bring it down as the antecedent in our combined statement, and then the second consequent, Z wedge F, and put it down here as the consequent. You can then use these, oops, I'm sorry, I think I'm looking at, yeah, I might be looking one homework assignment beyond what I want to be looking at. But anyway, so that's the basic way that this works. Alright, and then we can then go down and use those on those statements like we did before, where we would then use, where we could then, complete logical proofs by just sort of saying, okay, well, we can just add B on there via number 1 addition. And we can come down to the next one, and we can just sort of say, okay, that's just a combination of F plus L 1 and 2 conjunction. And we would just move along. And I believe this is the right set of problems. And so I'm not really sure why I have this part in there, so I might have to delete that. Alright, thank you.